I am very proud to introduce our next speaker, the Reverend Carol Devine, who serves as Director of Blessed Tomorrow, which is a coalition of faith leaders working to be faithful stewards of our creation, a part of ecoAmerica. Many of you in this room are part of the executive governing board of Blessed Tomorrow, so I'm sure to many of you, Carol is no stranger. I do want to let you know that she is an ordained pastor in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ in the United States and Canada. She actually was the founder of our creation care ministry, which we call Green Chalice. If you know our logo, it's the red chalice with the St. Andrew's cross. And Carol started Green Chalice as a pastor in our Kentucky region, and then reached out to our general ministries, Disciples Home Mission, and it found a home across the general church. Carol has multiple degrees. She has an MDiv from Lexington Theological Seminary in Lexington, Kentucky, one of our disciple seminaries. And she just this year was honored with the President's Award by Lexington Theological Seminary. She served for a while there as Director of Admissions. She's been part of the Kentucky Disciples regional staff, and she has also degrees from Transylvania University there in Lexington, again, one of our colleges, and an MS from the University of Kentucky. She has 3 adult children, 2 sons and a daughter. Her son, Benjamin, was married just this past weekend, so she's a recent mother of the groom, and she has 1 old dog, she says. Carol is an active person, loves to swim, cycle, kayak, do all those adventurous things. Here's what I know, that this is someone in whom passion has truly met purpose. Carol's passion for the work of climate justice it's not just intense, it stems from every fiber of her being. She made a decision at one point in her ministry, and she actually talked with me about this before she did it. She decided to leave being a pastor in order to become the full-time leader of Green Chalice. And she did that at great financial sacrifice to herself. But she felt that if the ministry were truly to go where she thought it could go, that she needed to devote full-time to that. How many of us have found something that we care about so much, where we think we're the ones that can really make a difference, that we're willing to take those kinds of steps? And God has blessed her and given her a new platform with Blessed Tomorrow, where she can not only help to lead disciples of Christ, but the entire body of Christ, as we together honor that call to be faithful stewards. She will tell you, and I'm sure she'll mention this, that we have found within the Disciples of Christ that our churches who become what we call Green Chalice churches, they're certified. It simply means they are taking important steps. And there's certainly a bar that you have to meet in order to get that certification. But when they, no matter how small the congregation, when they discover there are actual things they can do to make a difference, it invigorizes their whole life as a congregation. And I have heard testimonies from our Green Chalice churches about that. So I'm so excited to bring her to you now. Let us hear the Reverend Carol Devine. We give thanks to God for her gifts and for her being with us here in this moment. Carol.
Good morning. I am so honored to be here, and do I just push this one? There we go. Okay. I want to just, Terry just introduced me to you, but I want to just say a couple of things. One is I am here to serve you. My job as faith director at ecoAmerica for the program called Blessed Tomorrow is to serve you so that you don't have to be the expert on climate and faith, but that you can call upon me to help you and to work with any of your staff or folks who are doing climate or creation care within your denomination. That is my role. I have business cards on my table out here, and I'm happy to serve you. The other thing that I wanted to note is that when Green Chalice became denomination-wide for the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, that meant that I was put on the board of the working group called Eco-Justice Working Group of the National Council of Churches. So I actually was a part of the National Council of Churches when I was in that beginning of that role. And I just wanted you all to know that NCC has been doing climate work officially since 1983 and has been putting out statements and doing work through NCC for a long, long time. When NCC restructured in 2011, 2012, 2013, in that time frame, we were spun off. We were asked to spin off and do our own thing along with a poverty working group. And so that's when we became Creation Justice Ministries. So I have served along with Sergey Capral, and I don't know if anybody else in this room has been a part of CJM board, but I wanted to connect some of those dots. The other thing I want to say is that those of us who do climate and faith work, we work with Interfaith Power and Light. So hopefully you all know that name. We work with Green Faith. Hopefully you've heard of Green Faith. We work with Creation Justice Ministries, and they'll be leading a panel this afternoon, as well as Green the Church and Blessed Tomorrow. So all of us are in communion and work collaboratively on this, and that's really important for you to know, because unity is the key for this. We have one earth. We don't have a plan B, as they say, for what to do when this earth fails us, and so we all are in this together. I also would like to just give one more framing, and that is, if I were to ask any of you or any Christian anywhere, are we called to feed the hungry? Everyone would say, yes. Our faith, Christ Jesus, calls us to feed the hungry. And what I am trying to do, along with all of others who are working in this climate arena, is to help for all churches and all Christians to say that same yes when asked, are we called to lead on, to care for creation, and to lead on climate and climate justice. So we aren't asking for a new program for congregations. We're asking that it become part of who we are in Christ, because that is our faith call. Will you pray with me, please? As we go together to God and Christ, I would just ask that you would call up a special place in nature. Maybe it's a mountain, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's a particular tree of your childhood, or a field, or a creek, maybe it's the ocean. I just ask you to go to that place. God, as we are united through Jesus the Christ, we also are united through your embodiment of the earth, which was created by you and therefore sacred. And there are special places that we hold in our minds and hearts right now where we feel so connected to you. And so we give you thanks. We give you thanks for the ocean and the mountains and the trees in our yards and the birds. And we give you thanks for all of the places that we have come to know you more deeply. And God, we pray that all your children might have access to these places, that all your children, even those yet to be born, might have clean air and clean water and places where they can sit under the shade of a tree or splash through a creek, stand at the edge of the ocean, and feel your power. I ask you to bless all of us in this room for the communions we represent. Give us the strength in body and spirit to do your work and to feel your presence. In Christ's name, amen. Why are we having this conversation? Why is climate justice the topic of this unity gathering? Because our faith calls us to do this work. Our holy scriptures call us to do this work. Our Christian tradition that is founded on justice and love, practices of care, call us to do this work. Our call to care for the least of these among us, most vulnerable people, calls us to do this work. If I click this, will it? There we go. Science calls us to this work. This is a video that shows the earth warming since it starts in the 1800s. And you can see that when it hits the 50s, the 1950s, we start seeing quite an increase. And if we get into the 80s and 90s, we go from lots of blue to a whole lot of yellow and red and orange. And this is where we are, and the predictions are dire. I'm not going to kid around. We have never been in this place before. This is not something we have playbooks for. We can no longer look at what weather patterns did in the past to know what they're going to do in the future, because we have never been in this place before. And so the situation in which we find ourselves calls us to this work. The heating of the planet, global warming, we experience as climate and weather disasters. We've all been praying for those impacted by Hurricane Helene and Milton, and it's only going to continue, right? The fires, the drought, the heat, more people die from heat-related climate than any other climate disaster, more than any hurricane or any other disaster, fires, etc. Heat is the number one killer. And who are impacted first and worst? The most vulnerable people, people of color, children, elderly, the poor. And all regions are impacted, but they are impacted differently. So the experiences that we have in the southeast is very different, and then the southwest or northwest, right? So we're all impacted, but we are impacted differently. So when folks are like, but we have more snow than we've ever seen, that doesn't mean that that planet isn't getting warmer. It just means that that is how it is impacting that particular region. Why are we in this place? These are the drivers of climate change. Transportation is number one in the United States. These are U.S. breakdowns. The electricity production, industries in general, commercial and residential, and then agriculture. Now, these percentages are different in different countries, but this is it for the U.S. Climate change harms all of us. All of us are being impacted, but the least of these among us are the first who are impacted and the ones who are bearing the brunt of it. And they are the ones who have contributed the least to the problem. So the problem is mostly the result of the wealthiest. And because of the same things that got them their wealth, they're more protected and resilient from being able to come back from impacts of climate change. I was speaking to someone who has a vacation home and some big fancy boat in Florida, and was asking about, like, can you even get insurance? And the person said, oh, we don't worry about insurance. Those are the folks who are contributing that don't have to worry about insurance. If it all goes away, we have the money to go on. But for the most of the people in the U.S. and around the world, they don't have those kinds of privileges. And when the storms come, if it doesn't take their lives, if it doesn't take their homes, if it doesn't take their jobs, if it doesn't take their food, if it doesn't take their communities, then they are still just left so alone. So these pictures are all just from Helene. And I'm also just going to include the more than human world in the most vulnerable. We are having species extinction like we've never seen before. And so it isn't just us humans who are being impacted. Why should we care about this as Christians? Because every single thing that we care about, every single ministry and mission that we have in our churches and our communions is being impacted by climate change right now. Right now. I was a pastor for 14 years. As a pastor, I was involved in our local food pantry. Every year, we had more and more people who were coming for food. We were calling out more and more to the churches. We need your help. We need your financial support. We need your food donations. And every year, more and more people were coming. And how do we sustain this? Climate change is impacting our food systems. It's impacting people's jobs so that they aren't able to support themselves in the same way. Migration all across the globe is happening because people can't live where they were, or they lost their jobs, or they lost their homes. There's a ton of migration that's happening in the U.S. because of climate change. All of these things that we care about are being impacted right now because of climate change. And so we have to care. Access to food, ag, the quality. Sometimes we don't realize that climate change is not only because of drought or storms or temperature changes affecting our growing seasons, which it is, but also the nutritional value of the food that is grown is decreasing because of climate change, so that this same piece of food, the same vegetable, doesn't have as many nutrients as it used to have, soil degradation, etc. There's more food insecurity in the U.S. and around the world, and there's growing food assistance need. And again, the most vulnerable are most at risk. Water. All people should have access to clean water at all times. It should be a no-brainer, but because of drought and pollution, because of flooding, you all probably have seen that due to Helene, folks were, if they had water, which some did not even have water, but if they had water, they were under a water boil, right? Because the system had broken down. We often aren't thinking about and talking, because it's impacting humanity so greatly. We often aren't thinking about the natural world, but as climate change impacts us, the climate is also impacting the natural world. We're experiencing vector-borne illnesses from insects that we have never seen. In Kentucky, there is now an issue with armadillos, which armadillos aren't supposed to be in Kentucky, but we have a problem with armadillos right now because of climate change. So as these storms happen, they are causing trees to fall, and those trees are really important for us to fight climate change. And so it's this vicious circle, the fires that take our trees and then release more carbon, and then et cetera, et cetera. We're in a place again that we have never been before. Our economy. Our economy is impacted. If you look at what the military plans for, they're very concerned about the climate change impacts on the economy of the military, but also for all of our economies. It is impacting all of the things that you see right here. And not only insurance costs, but in some places like Florida, you can't even get insurance anymore. So what does that then mean for homeowners, or for folks even who are renting and relying on someone else's insurance? Migration, I've already talked about. When we are forced to leave our communities, then we lose our systems of support. We lose the places that we know. We may lose our jobs or any of the things that we have. and we try to start over, but we're carrying so much trauma and grief from those experiences. We have language challenges. We don't know where to go, and we're more likely to be without a home and without those support systems that all of us need. We already are seeing, of course, increased violence. I was at the dentist this past week, and my dental hygienist says, I hear that you shouldn't go into Western North Carolina anymore unless you have a gun and it is cocked and ready. And I said, that isn't true. Please, let's not be telling people that isn't true. But these are the kinds of things that just start as something small with disinformation that we're seeing through social media and through the internet that then causes people to have fear. And then they take those guns, that's a whole nother topic, but then they take those guns and have it cocked and ready, and someone gets harmed or loses their life. There is violence that is increasing because of the stress, because I can't get gas or because I don't have the things that I need, as well as war. The impacts that probably we have been seeing a little more quietly for a long time is climate's impact on health. When I was a kid in elementary school, I didn't know anybody who had asthma. I didn't know anybody in any of my classrooms that had asthma when I was a little kid, and I'm older than I look. So now I can't go into any classroom in the U.S. and there's not some kids in that classroom who have asthma. Climate change has been impacting our health for a long time, and we're just now really starting to see the ramifications of that. So if we care about the health of the people in our congregations and our communities, we have to care about climate change and work for climate solutions. Our young people are experiencing mental health crisis like we have never seen before. And we can name a lot of things. The pandemic, of course, was one of those. But climate change is also one. And when a young person walks into their church and they don't hear anybody talking about climate change and they don't see anybody leading on this issue, then they're going to be walking out, because they no longer see light at the end of the tunnel, and they no longer have hope for a brighter future for themselves and their children if they were to have them. I have 3 adult children. None of them are talking about having children, right? Because they don't see hope for a better future, and they don't want to bring children into a world where they don't have hope for a better future. And so our young people are experiencing a mental health crisis, and we have got to be working on mental health, of course, and also letting them see that we are committed to a brighter and more hopeful and prosperous future for them and for their children. There we go. I've mentioned several times vulnerable populations, but our vulnerable folks are the ones who are being impacted. So as we are called to care for the least of these among us, as we are called to live out our faith in Christ Jesus, if we care about these folks who are listed here, then we have to care about climate change and climate solutions. If we are committed to anti-racism, we have to be working on climate solutions, because it is the same problem at the root. Climate change is not a science problem, it's a spiritual problem. And the same root cause that has caused us to be in this changed climate that we are currently experiencing, in this crisis and this catastrophe, those are the same problems that are at the root of systemic racism. And who should be leading on problems of the Spirit? The church. The church. This isn't something we can pass to the government. This isn't something that we can pass to scientists. This is something that we should be leading on because we understand what it means to build something that we will never enjoy, but for future generations, to plant that tree whose shade we will never sit under. So we know the problem. It is because we have destroyed nature, because we burn for fossil fuels. And so therefore we have the solution. Stop burning and restore nature as we also work together to care for each other, to unite under Christ, and to work for the least of these among us in our communities. One of the things that's really important for us to understand is that we are in a time we've never been in, but what better time for us as Christians to stand up and say, we were born for this. We were born for this time. Because we are, as people of faith, are called to a higher power who works in and through and among and connects us. So we can cast that vision of the better world, and we can say, hey, we're going to do this together, and here's what it's going to look like. And yes, you young people are going to have a hopeful and prosperous and abundant future. If we all do this together and cast this vision and have this positive opportunity, then we can do it. When we set our sights on a more hopeful future, and when we work in our congregations to solve climate change, and as we are connected and working on this together, our congregations actually thrive. And the young people see us working for them and with them and centering what they need, and they want to be a part of that. And we are doing that, right? We are. There's in all of the denominations that I work with Blessed Tomorrow, and with One Home, One Future, and you all, I'll talk about that in just a second, have some cards on your tables. I am so blessed to know that there are so many congregations that are rocking it. They are doing all of the things that we would hope they were doing. They are leading in their communities. They are reaching out to churches down the street or across town and working on these issues together. And we are seeing that through the Biden administration, more money has been put into climate work than ever before in the history of the U.S. and the history of the world. So we are seeing faith communities and federal funding and all of this justice-led, youth-led suits that many churches are actually supporting and a part of, and World Council of Churches is involved with and leading on, that we are seeing more state-level action and city-level action. We have mayors who are leading on this. We have health folks who are leading on this. And so really great stuff is happening, and we have to keep pointing to that. And pointing within our denominations, within your communions, lift up those congregations that are doing this incredibly good work. This is solar installations in the United States. We are off the charts. And nobody could have predicted that we are where we are. And nobody could have predicted that before the Biden administration, that for the first time in history, nonprofits, which means churches, can get literal money to do solar in their communities. Never before have we been able to do that because we are nonprofits, and so we don't pay taxes, and so we have not been afforded those opportunities in the past, and now we can. And if you don't know about that, please learn about it. See me, see Avery. We would love to talk to you and make sure that your denominations and communions know about all that can be done in our communities. Transportation, we have electric cars and then hybrid cars, and that continues to increase. Individuals can get tax breaks for that for the first time. We have all of these solutions that focusing on justice and access and making sure that all communities know about the access. There's incredible groups that are coming together to be able to make sure our churches and our local communities know about the things that are happening, and that they have access to these monies and know about their opportunities for the churches and for their church members, having to do with transportation and solar and more. In our congregations, we are just seeing such commitment, and as Terry said, when congregations are engaged in creation care, they are thriving. I once, when I was pastoring, had a church member. She was a farmer all of her life, and she said to me, Carol, when we're digging in the dirt, we can't help but to feel good. And I would say when we're digging in the dirt, we can't help but to feel connected to God. When we're digging in the dirt, our spirits are healed and renewed. And so we have a lot of congregations that are digging in the dirt. And they are starting community gardens, and they're starting pollinator gardens, and they're helping with waterways and creeks and rivers and the ocean. And we have incredible things that are happening. And so we are encouraging churches to go where the Spirit is calling them in this work. There isn't a path where you have to start here and then go to here and then go to here. But where is the Spirit calling you? What is your church excited about already? And let's start there. We were talking in our discussion yesterday about there's so many on-ramps to this work. And we, and I, and Avery, and others are here to help your congregations figure out what's the best path for them. But we just encourage congregations to have some kind of a team, and that team may be 2 people. It may be 20 people. And we ask them to figure out where is the Spirit calling their congregation, and then make a public and visible commitment. One of the things that we were talking about yesterday in the group that I was in, and that I'm seeing over and over again, is that there's so much great stuff going on, but nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it, and so we have to be louder, and we have to be more visible in our commitment to creation, to care, and to climate justice, so that folks know all the good stuff that is going on. On your table, sorry about that. There we go. On your table, you have, there's a card about climate ambassador training. Blessed Tomorrow has had a climate training for free available to people of faith for many years. We have worked with our partners at United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ, ELCA, the Episcopal Church, AME, and I'm leaving some out, to have customized trainings for denominations. And we also have one specifically for clergy, and we also have one in Spanish. We are trying our best to help people of faith, and particularly clergy, have just the basic training so that they know about climate change and climate impacts and climate solutions, that they know how it is impacting the church and the church's work, that they also know how to talk about it, how to preach about it, how to care for our young people and the mental health impacts. And that training is free. It is on demand. We also do it live and in person. And I'm here to serve you, but there's cards on your table to learn more about that. If this works, this is one congregation. It's a small, rural disciples congregation.
Brings all who come to our church. This is a symbol to the world that we stand for acceptance. We stand for compassion. We care for each other, and we care for our community. As followers of Christ, we are called to love our neighbors as ourselves. And if we love our neighbors, we love God's creation as well. Here at Midway Christian Church, creation care is a part of how we live our faith. Protecting God's creation means protecting our brothers and sisters everywhere. It extends beyond our church and beyond even our community. Some of us are more worried than others about how we are treating our natural world, about our changing climate. But we all know that we should walk more gently together on God's earth. We all deserve clean air, clean water, and a thriving world around us. But things are changing. Some of our churches are facing wildfires or floods or drought in places where they've never had them before. And it's the most vulnerable among us, the children, elderly, and poor, who suffer the most from these changes. So what do we do about it? For us, it started as a way to save money. We were spending too much to heat and cool our church. And there were so many ways to save money by saving energy. More efficient heating and ventilation, LED lights in the fellowship hall, insulating windows and timed outdoor lighting. Every one of these changes helped keep our air and water clean and keep pollution out of the atmosphere. But caring for creation is much more than just saving energy. It's about making choices that reduce our impact and help us all live healthier lives. It's about making better use of the resources God gave us. We care for God's creation through all of these things, but most important of all, through people. At God's table, we partake in the central meal that sustains us and connects us to each other and to all of God's creation. Here, God's love is expansive and the welcome is wide. It's by coming together that we can do extraordinary, positive things for our children, our congregation, and our community, and create a healthier, safer climate and a more equitable world for ourselves and future generations. At Midway Christian Church, we're living out a legacy of love. Won't you join us at the table?
Midway Christian Church serves a meal to their community, and they use local food from the farmers market. Sorry, I'm going to go on. Midway Christian Church now has solar panels, which they didn't have when we created this video. There is a biking group that comes through every Saturday, and they have set up and opened their doors so that they can use the restroom, refill their water bottles, and they have bike racks that they have put out. They have partnered with the Presbyterian Church down the street and created a community garden that they work on together. They have pollinator gardens, they have rain gardens. They even did a Lenten study, just their church, that they then published and shared with our denomination and with anybody else who wants. So Creation Care isn't like a program over here for them. It is integrated into all that they do, every decision that they make in order to walk more gently on the earth, to be good neighbors, and to provide and help create a more hopeful future for those who are yet to be born or younger generations. So if Midway Christian Church, a rural, small congregation in Kentucky, can do this and thrive, so can any other congregation do this and thrive as well. One of the things that I wanted to talk about for just a minute is that Katharine Hayhoe, which many of you have heard her. She's a climate scientist. She's also an evangelical. Her husband is a pastor. She says the most important thing that all of us Christians need to be doing is talking about it. We need to be talking about it here in National Council of Churches. We need to be talking about it within each of our denominations. We need to be talking about it in our churches and in our local communities. Because what we know is that people are concerned about climate, but they aren't talking about it with each other because they don't think that you are concerned about climate, or they think that you may think it's a political issue. But when we come at it as this is a tenet of our faith, this is how we're called to live out our faith, then we can help others lower their stress and open up for conversation. And also, we have learned through research that there are ways that we used to talk about climate change that are not effective. while probably all of us love polar bears, probably none of us have ever lived where polar bears lived. So when we talk about polar bears, that doesn't really resonate with most people. And so talking about polar bears really doesn't move us forward in this conversation. So what we know about when we're preaching, teaching, talking about climate is that we want to start and stay with people. What is important to our denominations, our communities of faith. We want to make it real. Talk about things that it's impacting, food pantries or our health or economy, those kinds of things that we know that are important to our people. We want to then focus on the benefits and solutions. This is an opportunity. Like I said, we were meant for this. God called us to this time, and we can say amen because we happen to be living in a time where it has never mattered more on climate solutions. Then we're called to inspire and empower the people with whom in our communions and within our congregations, because we want them to know that what they do matters and that they are empowered by their faith to lead on this and to act. And then we want to give them ideas of how they can lead and act on climate. So we want to, I love polar bears, so I'm not saying that I don't, but that just we've learned isn't really effective. So as we talk about polar bears or the impacts on humans, let's focus more on the positive, right? So we start with people and we stay with people. We want to connect with people and what matters to them. We want to center the people in our churches, the people in our pews, as we talk about this, or within our communions and denominations. Connect on using our own language of our communion and our denominations. We want to connect with them on the things that they understand and that matter to them. And it's really also important that we acknowledge ambivalence. This is a huge issue. Climate change is a huge issue. So it's okay for folks to be not sure how to move forward, or a little ambivalent, or maybe they've only heard the political stuff and so they're just unsure. So acknowledging that, yeah, I get that. This is a hard topic, but stay with me because there are things that we can do. We want to make it real, connect the dots. So sometimes I've been astonished that some people hear about the things happening in western North Carolina due to Hurricane Helene or to Milton or to fires, and they have never thought about that in terms of climate change. So we still need to be connecting those dots. And saying the words climate change or creation care and that these things are happening because of that. So help connect the dots for people because we can't assume that that has happened. Focus, of course, on facts and share stories. Share stories. There was in the Appalachian Mountains in Tennessee, there was a plastics factory that when it was hit with Helene, the workers were literally up to their knees in water before the employers dismissed them. And so they were dismissed. Most of the employees were Hispanic. 6 of them died, tried to get home. Others were clinging to trees because the water rose so fast and was so strong. Those communities have come together, and communities around them have really come together to try to help support and show love to them. That's one story, right? Share stories. Focus on the benefits. Pastor Heather, who was in that video, they didn't start in this honestly, they did not start in this creation care climate work for altruistic reasons. They were trying to save money. Their boiler went out, and they started evaluating how can they save money when it comes to how they were using electricity. So there are positive impacts on our church budgets, on our denominational budgets when we do this work. The health benefits are so immediate. There are incredible stories about, in some states in particular, they are working really hard to go to electric school buses. And remember, I was talking earlier about asthma. The kids who have asthma in particular are really impacted by those school buses. But when they go to electric, then suddenly they are able to breathe, and the impact is immediate. And then just we are all a part of one community, and there's so much that we can do together on this issue. We want to inspire and empower. We are called to this, and we can make a difference. And the telling the stories like Midway Christian or the churches within your own communion and denomination or individuals who are doing this work, sharing those stories helps us go, I hadn't ever thought about that. That's something that we can do. And I have a little Post-it on my desk at home that says, practice hope. Because as all of you know, hope is not a noun and we get it and then we're done. Check, I've now got hope. But hope is something that we wake up every single day and we practice it. It is a verb, if you will. It is an action that we take. And so every time we make choices to, let's say, eat local food versus fast food, and we choose to use compostable versus the plastics, and we choose to use our water bottles instead of getting more plastic. Each of those little decisions, and then the bigger ones too, is practicing hope. And as I practice hope, then hopefully that gives you some hope. And as you practice hope, then somebody in your communion or your community is also given hope. So let us all inspire and empower together as we practice hope. This is an opportunity for the church. None of us are blind to the fact that people have left in droves from our congregations and that churches are really struggling in that way. But when we are doing this work and there's vitality and energy in our congregations, then folks come to check it out. And the youth are given hope and want to be a part of it. So it's a real opportunity for the church. Then as we're talking with people, we want to give them ideas of how they can engage. And as I said at the start of this, I am here for you, for your communion, for your churches, and Avery and I work together along with the others that I listed at the beginning to support this work in our congregations. So you don't have to have the answers. You can just point them to us and we will do that, or we will work with you to do that. So we want to give them lots of ideas. We want to ask them to join us. We want to have them see us leading on this issue. There are, I don't know the exact number right now, but in terms of houses of worship, so that would be of all faiths, there are over 350,000 houses of worship in the United States. That is more than post office. That is more than Starbucks. That is more than any of those various things that we often think, oh my gosh, there's one on every corner, right? If you come to Kentucky, you sometimes will see a church on every corner. But we are the heart of our communities, you all. We are still the ones who know the needs of our people. We are still the ones who know the pastors across town and across the street so that we can connect and work together. We are still the ones who are providing food, and we are providing shelter for the homeless. We're the ones who are going into the prisons. We're the ones who are supporting our communities. And so we actually do still have power together within these United States. And our leadership does matter because people know that when we speak, we aren't speaking for our own financial benefit, but that we are speaking on behalf of Christ our Lord and connecting with each other on that. Your leadership matters. Sometimes people hear climate action and they think of carrying signs and going to the Capitol, and that freaks them out. Just going to be honest. I hope that people in this room feel very confident doing those things, but the people in our pews often don't. But there's a spectrum of advocacy. Like I said, we need to be talking about this in our own communions, our own churches, and our own communities. And so that's advocacy as we talk with each other. And then maybe we lead a study on it in our Sunday school class. And then maybe we go and partner with someone else ecumenically in our community. So let's be thinking about all the ways that we and our people can advocate for climate solutions, and it doesn't just look one way. We just prayed about voting. We just talked about the season that we are in. National Baptist Convention USA asked me to work with them to create a handout about voting climate justice, because it was something that they realized the members weren't aware of. Like, what? We would think about climate justice as we go to vote. I am asking that we all raise this up as an issue. We don't have to point to particular candidates on local, state, or national level, but we can ask people to know their faith and know what we are called to work for and to stand for as we go and cast our ballots. Probably the most important thing that all of us are going to do on climate in 2024 is in the election, in the ballot box. Jackie DuPont Walker once said to me, it isn't just about you voting, Carol, because you also need to get 10, 12, 20 people and make sure that you call them and ask them, are they voting? Do they need help getting to the polls? So it's really important that as all of us are talking to our communions, our congregations, that it isn't just about you and you and you voting. It's about you and your 10 to 20 other people that you're going to be texting and calling and asking, do they need help? Do they want to talk about the issues with you? We all can then be part of a faith wave that cares for creation and for climate justice in just a very short amount of time. So please join me in doing that. Join the movement. Creation Justice Ministries has been part of and partner with NCC for over 40 years, 41 years now. We have on your tables, you will see information about One Home, One Future, which is a campaign that is designed by a coalition of 46 denominations and faith organizations who have come together to support congregations, to support clergy, to support lay people, and also spiritual people who maybe really aren't sure what they are, but this is something that they are concerned about. So this is a climate and faith movement that's for all people of faith and spiritual people, and we have regular events. We have a very robust resource hub. We have trainings, and we are there. So that if a pastor contacts me and wants to talk about how do I preach on this, we provide that kind of guidance. I once had somebody who called me up, a Presbyterian in Florida, and said, okay, here are the things that we have done in our church. What do I do next? And we talk about the opportunities. I cannot stress enough that I am here for you. I am here for your communions. I am here for your people. And that's what this movement is. And as we all join together on this, as we all stand or sit together on this most holy ground, we can be unified. We don't have to talk about how we do communion or baptism or any of the other theological beautiful things that we do a little bit differently. We can say, do you believe that the earth is sacred? Do you believe that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof? All of us can say amen and yes to that. So let's do this work together. There we go. One Home, One Future provides each congregation that joins, there's no cost, there's no downside. We don't ask them to do anything except join with us, be supported, and be visible in the creation care actions that they take, and they get free congregational toolkits that are sent to them, and then they get invited into this growing community of support and connection. We educate clergy. We center our youth. I need to go back 1 second. In November of 2022, in New York City, we had a gathering of 16 denomination heads. Terry Hort-Owens was one, and many others were a part of that conversation. And we asked them for one whole day to work together about what is it that they need and what do they want for their communions to lead on creation care and climate justice. And some of the things that they highlighted were, number one, young people. That youth have got to be central to this. And so it isn't that we just have activities for the young people to do, but that we center them in this work, that we support them, that we listen to them, and that we follow them. Young people. Clergy, they said that we need our clergy to be educated and trained on this issue. And so we have free trainings for clergy specifically and support for clergy. They also said that justice had to be woven in and throughout all of the things that we do, because as we have said over and over again, the same things that are impacting the most vulnerable, racism, poverty, it is all the root that is the same of climate change. Every year, my organization hosts some kind of climate and faith forum. In 2024, we did something different that stepped out on faith. I was absolutely terrified, honestly, but what we did is we had a live event that was streamed to 70 in-person gatherings, plus a bunch of other people who joined who weren't near an in-person gathering. And so we showed a session, and then we paused and had table work at the in-person gatherings, and then we did another session, and then we had more discussion. So we had both the benefit of really great speakers and leaders, while also being able to connect in our local communities with other people who are concerned about this issue as from their faith. We had 1,400 people. We had 70 locations. We were absolutely blown away by the interest and by the folks who came out. So we're doing again in 2025. All the congregations who want to be a local host in their community, they get money to pay for food or a reception or some kind of food. Or we had one synagogue that needed to get security, so they were able to pay for a security person. They were also able to pay for the janitor, and they were also able to provide a lunch. So you have a card on your table about the National Faith and Climate Forum, and I encourage and invite all your congregations to join us in this work. And then the training I have talked about. We have trainings for AMEs. We have training for disciples. We have training for UCC's, Episcopal Church, the Lutherans. I'm leaving some out, but we also have it in Spanish, and we have one specifically for clergy. Free, on demand, open and available to all of you. I encourage and invite you to join me, to join Avery in this work, to use me and the resources and the trainings and the events and the offerings that I work on, that I am privileged to lead. And I don't know what we're doing on time, but I will pause now. I'm doing okay, good. I'm going to pause now, and I think we're going to have some discussion and questions.
Great, so I'm happy to get the microphone to those of you who may have questions for her. We have about 10, how long do we, Bishop? About 10 minutes, about 15 minutes, okay. Any questions for Carol?
Hi there, Chuck Robertson from the Episcopal Church.
Hi, Chuck.
And so grateful for the work you do and grateful for the partnership with you. This is more, not a question, but a statement really to all of my colleagues here as we are getting ready in a couple weeks from now to say goodbye to Michael Curry as he steps down, his term ends and he retires, and to welcome Sean Rowe as our next presiding bishop. He just recently in our budget meetings and in our leadership meetings recently was very clear that he wants to see the Episcopal Church stay committed to creation care as well as to racial justice and reconciliation, two things that were really key to Presiding Bishop Michael Curry's time, and a lot of us were curious to see what that would mean. And so what forms that will take will be very interesting. I don't know what they will be, but I know that we are going to be committed. I'm eager in the months to come to hear continued best practices from others about this. And I'm wondering if we can just find ways to help each other know. I mean, maybe everybody else already knows, but I would love to hear more from what others are doing so that we can ourselves be able to hopefully live into that with whatever new plan we are doing or whatever continued plan we're doing.
Thank you so much, Chuck. And I think that is such an important conversation. One of my slides just talked about how important your all's leadership is on this, but it looks very different by communion. And some of us, like the Episcopal Church, have multiple staff who are doing creation care and climate work and are able to really lead and offer grants and wonderful things. Other denominations like Disciples of Christ have Green Chalice and a creation care program that looks like that. Some of us aren't able to afford to have anything specific, but you can join and we can provide all of that for you. But one of the first steps you must take, and I hope that each of you will really seriously pray about this, how can I lead on climate in 2025? Am I talking about it? Is it on my website? Am I writing about it? Is there some regular drumbeat of resources and information and articles on climate that is coming from the top leadership, from the general ministers and presidents and presiding bishops? If not, if you want help on that, that's what I'm here for. So I really urge all of you to pray about what that looks like for you, and that if you would like support, I am absolutely here. Avery is here, and many others who are working in the climate and faith arena. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What a fantastic and very well researched and systematically laid out strategy. I'm Frankie Jones, and I'm from the Progressive National Baptist Convention. I also come from corporate America, and I'm a retired colonel. I know a fair amount about disaster, and I live on a farm, and I studied agriculture.
Yeah.
When I look at the federal government, and I've had exposure there as well, I look at the Department of Agriculture, and you talk about agriculture. I look at disaster, and you're talking about FEMA, you're talking about the Red Cross. I look at corporate America, and I designed a model that evolved around corporate social responsibility. So many of our corporate, and you've done a phenomenal job. Trust me, I've got experience in this. But you've broken the code, is what you've done. And what you've got, and it's driven by prayer and love and concern and humility, and reaching to the masses, and that's where we miss out. We start at the mountaintop and we forget about the valley. And you've been in the valley, and so many of our corporations have missed it. Mm-hmm. They missed it. They don't see the correlation between corporate social responsibility and building strong communities. And the model you've got changes the presence of corporate America in integrity and ethics. And I just wonder, have you had an opportunity to be in dialogue with many? And I've coached Fortune 10s, Fortune 3s, Jack Smith, John Bryan. I mean, I was their personal coach. The church is the wake-up call, and you've done that. I'm just wondering, as you look at moving forward and mobilizing the church, and there's strength in numbers, and you've got the voices, they cannot ignore us. They cannot ignore us. I was on Duke Energy's corporate board. You talk about solar?
Yep.
We can talk about solar. But many of them, it's been politicized, and they run away from it because they don't want to lose that political support. You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Okay, fossil fuels and so forth. But I'm just wondering what your next steps are. What your next steps are, because you've got it. You've broken the code.
I really appreciate that. That's very generous and kind of you. I don't have experience with the corporate world. I will tell you that ecoAmerica, I am the faith director. We also have a program called Climate for Health that works with doctors, public health folks, nurses, as well as American Psychological Association, in supporting them on climate education and climate advocacy. And then we also have a communities program that is working with any kind of communities, organizations like Kiwanis Club or Scouts or mayors groups or LULAC, et cetera. And so we do have those three different arms. And I guess we don't exactly have, maybe through the communities, contact with some of those corporation types. But I would say that one of the blessings, like I said, of us coming about it as people of faith is that we don't have to talk about all of the, like it isn't about money. It isn't it is about what we are called as people of faith to do. So if we can connect with those who are in charge, if you will, or have all of the big money on this basic thing of caring for the least of these among us, of supporting our communities and telling those stories, maybe we can, break into the hearts of those folks. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Peter Cook. I'm the Executive Director of the New York State Council of Churches. Thank you for your work. We always need groups who can collate information and highlight tools for congregations to use. And I guess this would be my pitch to everyone here to please connect with your councils of churches in your state. Those are the folks that kind of bring all of our denominations together on a local level, and they can frame up what pending legislation is happening at your state level.
That's right.
And I think what we really try to encourage our faith communities to do is to be very politically engaged, to really build coalitions with environmental groups, to show up, be present, wear your collar, bring everybody to your state council's ecumenical advocacy day as a way to live into your baptism.
I couldn't agree with that more, that we in leadership have to show up and model what we want. Research also shows that over 60% of the folks in the pews are not anywhere near there. And so we model for them and talk about it in a way to invite folks in, and it needs to be a both and. That, like I was saying, the spectrum of advocacy, that folks are invited in wherever they are, and hopefully that it would lead to, through practicing to that. I attend my ecumenical advocacy days in Kentucky, and I'm part of Kentucky Council of Churches, so I'm in agreement.
Hello, thank you so much for this. I didn't see Presbyterian Church USA.
PCUSA was one that I see. I said I was forgetting some. Thank you. Yes, I work very closely with PCUSA. I apologize.
Because I know this year the youth disrupted our General Assembly over climate
I
change.
heard.
Oh, it was a big deal, and thank you, because I was going to say, if they're not involved,
Oh, no, yes.
I better go up and tell them to
We
be
yes.
involved.
Thank you for speaking up. Again, I'm older than I look, like I said, so I'm forgetful sometimes, and I knew that I was forgetting some. Thank you so much.
I think we have time maybe for one more.
A fellow Kentuckian.
Yay. I didn't know that we had a problem with armadillos.
Oh,
Who knew?
that's
No.
a side conversation, Gina.
Okay, no. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was indeed quite powerful. And I'm wondering, I know that the National Council of Churches wants to make like collective response. And I also know that we are you and you are we. What advice would you give to the National Council of Churches to both work with you and on some sort of action?
Yeah, thank you, Jean. I would say number one is that everybody in this room needs to be in very serious prayer. As our preacher said last night, maybe down on our knees where we get better reception as to what it is that God is calling you and how is God calling you to lead on climate in 2025. That is the first thing that I would say. And then the second thing would be NCC is a partner of Blessed Tomorrow and of the One Home, One Future campaign, and I am at Bishop McKenzie's beck and call, as she knows, as the preacher said last night, Jesus or Bishop, and we are there. So I'm happy to imagine together how we could support the National Council of Churches. There's a great statement that is coming out of the Christian Education convening table, and we're looking forward to supporting you all and promoting that or supporting that with trainings, resources, or whatever that might look like. And then just I serve you all. I serve you all. Avery serves you all. And so we're just here to do what you all ask us to do. And I gave you the example of the NBC USA. I just literally got a call and was asked, can you come up with 10 reasons to vote climate justice so that we can educate people about that? And so we worked in one day, had that done, printed NBC USA's logo on it, and sent to him. That's the kind of thing that I'm happy to do if you're like, gosh, I really wish we had this resource on climate and faith or whatever it might be. It needs to be on climate and faith, but then let me know, and we will work to make that happen for you. I am at your service.
I think we're just about at time unless we have any other questions in the group.
Thank you all so much.
If not, let's
God
thank
bless you.
Carol.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anything else you want to say and invite people to join? Blessed Tomorrow is one of our sponsors at this event. Yay!
Yay! I just, on your table you have things. You can also see me at the booth. You can get one of my business cards. You can email me, call me anytime. But all communions, denominations, or individual people of faith are invited to join One Home, One Future, either as a partner or as a congregation to receive the support and be part of this growing community. So I would invite all denominations and communions who haven't yet joined One Home, One Future to let me know, and we will get your logo listed and support you in this work. I also just really want to note, going back to what Chuck said earlier, is that some of our denominations or communions just really literally don't have the money or the human resources to do climate work. That's what One Home, One Future can be for you. It can be your program, and we are happy to create things, put your logos on them, and make them what you need. So please see me, talk to me. Happy to support you in this work.
Thank you, Carol, and Blessed Tomorrow and Carol and ecoAmerica has been a strong partner, not only recently, but then down through the years, at least 20 years, at least. Thank you, Carol. Come on, let's praise God for her.